Welcome everybody to another episode of YBMcast Tennessee. Special episode as we get this thing off the ground and running a little bit. I'm very excited for our guest today, Matt Bonds, who I've known for a long time, former teammate, fantastic friend, great coach, and somebody that I really rely on and talk to all day. But I want to introduce Matt with the Tennessee Spikes head coach, founder, Max's dad, guru of all things baseball at Tennessee Spikes. But Matt, people want to hear you talk, so I have you introduce yourself, kind of playing background, coaching background, who you are.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks, Baron. I appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be on. Yeah. So Matt Bonds, I'm located, like Baron, here in Middle Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. Yeah. So playing days, played with Baron at Brentwood High School and ended up playing at Trevecca University in Nashville, Tennessee, which is now a D2 school. And yeah, got into the coaching world. Actually, the summer after my senior year of playing, was a hired coach for a group of 10-year-olds at the time, and so we did that for about 4 or 5 years. Then I got married and had a kid, and took a couple years off, and then coached a little bit at high school, and then when my son turned 7, then we got into the crazy exciting world of travel baseball, and so now in my 5th year of doing that. So all in all, baseball been coaching about 10 years, and it's been a whirlwind. It's been fun, and I guess that's the thing that kind of bonds a lot of us here in the summers, and it's fun to be kind of reconnect with people like you, Baron, and guys that we've played with either growing up or played against, and it's been exciting.
In Middle Tennessee, and correct me if I'm wrong, you run around and you coach long enough, you end up knowing a lot of the coaches, and good, bad, and ugly. You know a lot of them, and you create relationships. You share players, you talk about players, you help each other out as you go. But what's really really cool about Matt is we shared a kind of a high school teammate atmosphere for a long time, and I was always a real fond of Matt as a friend. And to see him out there coaching again, it was really really cool. The very first time that we met and we scrimmaged against his team, and I'm gonna let him talk about them here in a minute. But the way that they do things, he's with the Tennessee Spikes. He's going to be humble, I know he is, but fantastic team. Usually play up in age level. They've got a lot of really cool kids, but they've got a lot of great coaches and a really good family atmosphere. So uh, tell us a little bit about the Spikes and kind of how that started. I know Max, when he turned 7U, that's kind of when that blossomed. But tell us kind of what the core values of the Spikes are and what you guys do.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a good question. So we the core of our team started actually in a rec U, excuse me, 6U rec all star. We went through the rec all star circuit that summer, and just being around other competitive kids. Just the practices in general going through that was like kind of an aha moment for us, and we were like, hey, is this the time to go ahead and jump into it? And so at that time, again, 7U, we were part of another organization. Did that for a couple of years, and similar to you, Baron, we had a young team. So after 8U, the group of kids that were playing up, which was about 75% of our team, we decided to do 8U again. So that was a couple of years ago, and so we decided also to kind of branch off on our own, kind of form our own identity. Um, whether it's from jerseys and social media, whatever formulating your schedule. We had a good experience being part of that organization, but we just decided to branch off on our own. And so yeah, that's what we did. And so we formed the Tennessee Spikes, and I consider myself to be very fortunate. I've got some fantastic assistant coaches. I've got one as a middle school coach, one as a high school coach, and the other is, he could be coaching in middle school or high school, but he's in the corporate world like I am. And so, all four of us played college ball. That doesn't mean everything. There's guys that I played college ball with. You're probably the same boat with Baron, that I wouldn't want within 100 yards of my kid. But I do think it lends to some sort of credence of what we're doing, and we all have different backgrounds too, which I think from a strategy standpoint, from a coaching the fundamental standpoint, I think it's good to, yeah, you have the general basics, you share those ideas or concepts, but having different backgrounds, there might be one, the one way that you might teach fielding a ground ball might differ from someone else. And maybe there's a kid that adapts to one fundamental different or one strategy in a different way. And so anyway, I think kind of having that various opinions is a good thing. And so again, we kind of lean on each other a lot, and I think it's been a good experience. And and obviously, as we all know, as if you can stay away from drama, it's better. And so we've been very fortunate in that regard too, to have a good group of parents. Um, and so, when you're all on the same page before the season starts, and whether it's, regards to, okay, how many out of town trips are we going to do? How many tournaments per month are we going to do? Um, and that's where we all kind of get on the same page before it gets going, and so there's no surprises once the season hits, right? And to answer your question about kind of our philosophy, again, I know it's kind of cliche, but we do try to emphasize development, right? And I think we all like to say that, and hopefully what we do falls in line with that. We're all competitive, right? We all want to win. And I think, teaching and preparing to win is important. I think that's a skill set in and of itself. um, but not at the risk of having the same kid sit all day, every day, every game. Not at the risk of throwing a 10U kid 120 pitches in a game because you want to win a ring, right? I think there's a line to be drawn there. And unfortunately, you and I both see it where and again, every team, every coach can do it their own way. That's fine. But sometimes there's a price to pay. And anyway, we're just not willing to cross that line. And so we err on the side of caution. We've got conservative pitch counts. We rarely pitch on back-to-back days. And so anyway, there's certain things that we just all agree on as coaches, and the parents buy in as well. And hopefully that taking that long-term approach will pay dividends down the road.
Well, I think you hit on something right there, taking a long-term approach. Your coaches and you have that same mentality of you've all played college baseball, so you know where this thing is supposed to end up at. And it's not to say that all the 10-year-old kids want to play college baseball or need to play college baseball. That's not the point. The point is, we're not going to. You don't want to hurt somebody. You don't want to burn somebody out. You don't want the kid to not play next year because he's tired. And you
Right.
don't want the same kid to be sitting every single game at the whatever 3 or 4 innings every single game. But if you see that long term approach, as you do, whether or not it's middle school, high school, college, even, there's a whole lot more going on than that 10-year-old tournament this weekend, right? So I appreciate that, and the podcast is obviously about all things youth baseball Tennessee. So just to let some of the listeners in, kind of how these things work, I'm sure that they assume that some of these conversations happen, but Matt and I will talk, and it'll be something as easy as this. Matt will have a tryout, and his team is just full, and so what happens is, or my 10U team at Midland is full, vice versa, and I just don't have a place for the kid. It's not that we're trying to cut him because he can't play. And Matt has called me several times, say, "Hey, we've got to let these 3 kids go just because I don't have room for them. They can all play. So if you're looking for something to me," and we picked up several of those kids. So you share ideas with coaches that you appreciate and you respect. That's probably the better word. Um, and it happens all over. There's so many programs in Middle Tennessee. There's a ton of Middle Tennessee programs. Most are fabulous and fantastic. Some are not so much. But somewhere along the way, coaches kind of form this web of communication, and we all end up knowing each other. We all end up seeing each other at most of the tournaments. You hope you go to tournaments like you're talking about traveling, so that you can just see other teams. And so that would bring me to this question. You guys travel a lot. You start because I bank on you all the time. I call you, say, "Man, we're trying to go to the Ripken experience. You guys already did that. What's that going to look like? When do you think an appropriate time? What age, maybe 9, 10, 8, to travel, to actually leave, not necessarily the state, but leave your little area of 60-mile radius that we all end up playing in? What do you think?"
Right. Yeah, so I think it's a good question, and I guess it's case by case, team by team. But we do travel, but it's only outside of Middle Tennessee, it's really just once a year, Baron, and so that's been our philosophy really since 7U. We choose one out of town tournament per year. And so to this point, it's always been the Ripken experience out in East Tennessee and Pigeon Forge. This particular year, they didn't have 10U on a weekend that was conducive to our schedule, so we're staying within the Ripken experience. But we're going up to Elizabethtown, Kentucky, and so back to your question, our philosophy is yes, we're going to travel, once, maybe twice a year outside of Middle Tennessee for a couple different reasons. A, they're 10. um there's going to be a time for that, such as with with your older group, call it 14, 15, 16, where I know those elite level teams, you do have to travel to go compete against, that upper echelon. So there's a time and a place for that. But I think it's also speaks to the quality of play that we have here in Middle Tennessee, that you don't necessarily have to leave the mid-state to go play some competitive teams. And we have different organizations that obviously put on tournaments essentially every weekend, whether it's a Game 7, Perfect Game, GMB, what have you. um, and so you can play different teams in the mid-state, just depending on what schedule you have and what works for you. And along those lines, we also, with regards to the schedule, we try to only do two or three a month, um, to try to have that balance where we're competitive and we're keeping the guys in competitive situations, but at the same time you still allow them to be kids, right? And so if a family wants to go on vacation, or they just need a weekend off, they can do that, right? And I'm not saying that's the right fit for everyone, but it's worked well for us, where kids at the end of the summer, they're not burned out. They want to get back into fall practice when we start that in August. And so we've kind of found that sweet spot that works for us. But I think that's the key, is to surround yourself with people that are looking for the same thing you are. And if you want to play and go travel every weekend, there's a team out there that'll do it. We're just erring on the side of caution with regards to burnout and overuse, et cetera. I know we might want to touch on this too. We're a little bit different in the fact that we encourage kids. We want them to go play other sports, right?
Hmm.
And to do that, you're going to have to give them some off time, right? And so we've kind of just formulated this schedule that works for us, and so far so good.
Well, it brings up the next point, and you want the 10-year-olds to be 10-year-olds. You want them to experience all the things that they want. And I know we're on the same page with this, but I'll let you answer the question. And I know Matt was a two-way sport player in high school. Played basketball, played baseball, probably your entire life. Run into maybe a couple weekends here and there where there's a conflict, but not all the time. What is your opinion? And I'm positive it lines up with mine because I know you. But two sports, three sports, football, basketball, baseball, is there too many, and is there a downside to letting these kids play multiple sports?
So I want them to play multiple if they want to. There is that rare kid that, we love them, right? If they're baseball only, it's fantastic. That's right. That's great. I think there needs to be clear communication with the parents with regards to making sure that it still stays enjoyable for them, and it doesn't become a chore, doesn't become a job, right? um but you talk to your Tim Corbins, you talk to a lot of these college coaches, they love it when they're recruiting a kid and they find out that he plays multiple sports, right? Whether it's injury prevention, whether it's just getting different types of coaches that you get confronted with and you get to be coached by, there's positives in that aspect of it. And I think just from a competitive nature, like for example, in my case, basketball, obviously it's a much different pace, right? And so just from an athletic development standpoint, I thought that was good. From that standpoint, from my athletic development, just to play a different pace of sport. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, if a kid wants to play multiple sports, I say as long as they can do it and make that schedule work for them and their family, I think we need to support that. I think it's foolish to say, you need to play baseball and be dedicated to our team year round. That's just not something that I believe in. And so, again, for us, and when it comes to the fall, we're relatively light because we want a kid to go play soccer. We want them to go play football. So we'll practice once or twice a week, and then give them that opportunity to do so. And just like in the summer, when there's a conflict, we want them to choose baseball. In the fall and winter, if there's a conflict, we're okay with they choose wrestling, football, or excuse me, yeah, wrestling, football, or soccer, right? Um, and so again, I think it comes back to communication and expectations and making sure that you're staying in touch with the parents and making sure they let you know, hey, if we have a tournament or a game, if we're scheduling Midland, if we scheduling your team in the fall and they're not going to be there because of football, let's just make sure that we let the coaches know ahead of time. And the parents have been great about that. And again, our philosophy doesn't mean it's right for everyone, but we do encourage them to play multiple sports.
Yep, absolutely. I'm on the same page. Especially you hit on something that's kind of key: the pace of play. People always say baseball is a slow sport, it's a boring sport. Well, I don't think so. You don't think so. Well, we've been around it for a long time. I will say that baseball is a slow sport until it's not, and then the wheels are off. I mean, it's everything's happening very very quickly, and we'll wait a minute. So we'll get some kids who come from the fall or from the winter time and getting back into the baseball practice, to kind of the pace of baseball from basketball, which is all the time. Something's happening. It's constant. The attention's already there. So we'll run into that a little bit, but I mean that's a quick fix in a couple weeks, and then they're back in love with baseball. It depends on whatever the season is. But to
Right.
just have an athlete, let these kids play and just become athletes of whatever it is. So we're on the
Right.
same page. How different is travel baseball? Forget 10 years old. Forget age. Just from when you and I were growing up in Middle Tennessee, how much have you seen it change from then until now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, first off, when I was growing up, there was no travel baseball till you got to 13U. And so at least in Williamson County, you played in whatever rec association that was near you, right? And so you would do that, call it 5U through 12U. And at the end you'd have all stars, and that would be fun, and that would be enjoyable. But yeah, not until you got to the big field, until 13U did I enter the travel ball world, and really did that become a thing. And so that's probably the biggest thing is, when does it start? And I've got a rare case where my nephew, just now in 11U, just started doing travel ball, and it's very competitive. He's on a very good team, which is rare, right? And that's, I get that question a lot from parents, where when is the right time to join, or to go to make that leap from rec to travel. And so, depending on family dynamics, depending on, what your schedule allows, that's really a family by family decision. And so, but if you do want to stay competitive and kind of continue to be pushed, I think that's the big change compared to when you and I were growing up. Is, we decided to make that move at 7U, and that is, again, that was not, for my parents, at least in the mid 80s, that was not even a thought in their mind to do the travel thing at 7 years old. I mean, that's just kind of, it was
No.
crazy, right? Um, and so, but hey, but after that, after 13U, I don't know, the difference, I think, from a coaching standpoint is, the kids, I think, are leaning more on social media, perhaps, I think, for development. And the reason why I'm saying that is, I think, because of YouTube, because of TikTok, because of Instagram, there's so many of these online coaches, right? And credit to them. They have found a way to create a business model, using social media. um but I think there's pros and cons to that as well, right? Because a lot of those guys, they're not seeing you in a competitive environment. Maybe you're sending them some video. And also, we don't necessarily believe that everybody needs to have the same exact swing, and so you got to kind of figure out, based on the athlete, you know for example, my son's more of a singles doubles guy. I'm not going to teach him to swing the same way I am my 4-hole hitter that can hit bombs, right? And
Right.
so, that kind of leads into a different philosophy as well. And we've gotten a lot more scientific with what we can do with swings, and the whole launch angle thing. I don't know if you want to get into that, but there's just a lot more that kind of goes into it, um, that I don't think was even explored back when you and I were growing up, right? So I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
different, but at the same time, you can sign up for what you want, and you can, if you do decide to stay in the rec longer, you're going to have to put more work in, right? And so that's what my nephew did. He worked a lot on his own, and then when it made sense for their family to commit to doing travel, and it was, it's coming this year in 11U, he's been able to adapt very quickly. And that's, again, that's not common. Unfortunately, it's not common. I feel like that's the thing. If you want to be competitive, you kind of got to start sooner rather than later. But it's got to make sense for your family, because if it doesn't work for the family, it's going to end up being, it's not going to, it's just not, it's going to fizz out. It's going to, it's just not going to work.
Oh,
So
absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, all good points. I think, especially at the older levels, you can find whatever you want to find. If you're looking for something if it's you strike out 3 times and you need to find a fix, well, I mean, you can search videos all day long and all of a sudden go with this, as opposed to just sticking the course and playing the game of average, which is what this is all about. You can find anything
right.
you want to. Um, when we were a high school age, you're talking about Big Field. You had Shootiques, Twitty City, and Hallmark. That was about it. There wasn't a whole lot of anything else going on. And now there's teams all over the place. But to your point, it almost seems like if you don't start early, it almost has to be a diamond in the rough type of situation where you join a team when you're 12, 13, 14. It's tough. But then again, once you get to be 14, 15, 16, you can kind of find these high school kids that have not had a place to land yet, and some of them are fantastic. They're great. Some of my best players on my 16U team didn't play on a travel team, 2 years ago. So it's hit or miss, but it's completely different than when we grew up, and it'll be different 5 years from now. But it is there's a lot of players in Middle Tennessee right now. Um, that is, we're just spread out, and they're really great. The talent level here is astronomical. Do you guys have you had any experience with folks moving in? I know we've had a lot of folks from California, Texas, some of the warmer states who play all year round, come to our tryouts, and just they're used to playing all year outside all the time. Have you had any of that experience at all, or maybe with some other teams, or just
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, whether it's kids who've tried out for our team, or just talking to some other coaches. No, I certainly think, especially here in Middle Tennessee, where we've experienced this tremendous amount of growth. I feel like there's a lot from Chicago. There's a lot from California. And it's interesting too, seeing, okay, we were competitive in this part of the country, and when they come here and they were surprised, they're like, hey, we're kind of behind the 8 ball. We had that a couple years ago, where this kid was, it doesn't matter where he's from, he was just a different part of the country, and he was on an elite team and in that area. And he came here, and he joined us for a practice, because we'll, if a kid wants, especially towards the late in the summer, if we know a kid's moved in, and they've reached out to us and they want to try out, we'll have them come and join us for a practice, just so we can get a feel for that kid, or they can get a feel for us and our coaching style. um, and so, yeah, I mean, the parents, they reached out to me after that practice. They called me that night. They're like, "Hey, that was an aha experience for us." And the kid will be fine, right? It's going to take some time to adapt to the level that we play at. Um, but yeah, it's just interesting where different parts of the country that they're playing year round. And we played a team last tournament a couple weeks ago, where they had like one outdoor practice, because they were from, I think they were from Illinois. And I
mhm.
mean, so it was interesting talking to their coaches, and they've done a lot indoors, and they've done a lot of cage work, and they've done a lot of little ground balls and a little turf space, right? But obviously, it's a different speed when you get out there, and you got the smell of popcorn, you got an opposing team out there, and it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just kind of, it's interesting. But what have you seen from kids that have come from other states? Have they noticed the difference between the Middle Tennessee baseball versus where they came from?
I think so. I think there's not. It depends on where they came from and what elite team they're playing for. We had a couple folks from Atlanta join us last year who played year round, and he was spectacular, fantastic kid. And then we've had who kind of fit right in, and he fit the mold, and we're ready to go, ready to play. And then we've had some of what you're talking about, where I played on this elite team in wherever, state X, doesn't matter, and it's not the same. They see us play, they see us practice. Like, this might not be the team for me because I'm not going to get very much. I mean, I'm not going to get very many at bats. I'm not going to get very many innings, and but you have to have that honest conversation with the parents. Like, we'd love to have you, but it's not a good thing for you. And it goes back to the coaches. Here are 4 or 5 coaches that I know that we
Right.
can call and set you up a tryout or an
Right.
evaluation or whatever it is, as long as it's just that honest communication with the parent. Because, man, if you don't do that, you're in a world of trouble about halfway through that year when they're not playing.
Yeah, bingo. I think having that network of coaches that because like we've discussed numerous times, there's different teams have different models, and so, um, as opposed to telling a 9 or 10 year old kid, "Hey, sorry to make our team. Good luck to you." It's, "Hey, let me introduce you to these 2 or 3 other coaches. Reach out to them, and go try out for them or have that discussion with them, and maybe they're a better fit." And also having those other coaches that you trust, right? It's not just a name and a number. It's hey, I've coached against this guy. I've seen his style, and I would trust my kid on that team, right? And so having that recommendation that you can provide to that parent, I think is a fantastic thing, as opposed to, you're not good enough for us, and maybe next year, right? And just kind of giving them that cold answer, if you will. I think it's just a better, I hope I'm never to the point where someone looks at me and says, "Hey, he shunned us, and we were, we were, they just, we weren't good enough for them," right? Because there's always going to be a team better than yourself, right? And then we tell our kids that all the time. Don't let the results of some of these games where maybe we're winning by, or maybe we're, like last tournament, we went undefeated, but that very next practice was a pretty tough practice because we want to instill in them, hey, the results of games shouldn't dictate how hard you practice, right? You need to always push yourself because you never know who's going to sign up for the next tournament, and they're gunning for you, right? You got a target on your back, and that's what you want. You want that target on your back, and you want teams vying for you. And sports have a way of humbling yourself, especially baseball, because it's a game of failure, right? So.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, baseball will humble you real fast, and especially at 10. I mean, these guys are, they're just now getting really good at tying their shoes. Thank goodness we're not doing that anymore. I mean, that was 2 years ago, man. We're tying shoes on the field, so we're finally getting past that. But you'll see them, and you'll see those tears. They're coming. They're right there, and you're trying to just talk them down and get to be 11 and
Look,
12. But you're trying to be in that. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I just had the conversation with this parent the other day, with regards to those tiers, right? And you try to put it in perspective for the kids and say, hey, baseball's a sport, right? It's got to be fun. But, we've all been there as players, right? The worst, nobody likes striking out. Nobody likes getting up there on the mound where everybody's eyes are on you and you walk 3 batters in a row, right? But it's having that mental toughness to realize, okay, I'm going to put the work in this week, next practice, whatever, and next time I'm in that situation, I'm going to get that hit, or I'm going to strike that guy out, or make him put the bat on the ball. And that's a tough thing for a young 9, 10, 11, 12-year old kid to learn. But in terms of how we are helping them develop as athletes, and hopefully that also carries over to life as well, hopefully that starts to resonate, and they realize, okay, if I strike out, it's not the end of the world. And even if we lose this game, it's still not the end of the world. And it's having that consistent mindset where I'm going to continue developing, and I'm going to go back to practice, and let's figure it out. But that's an easier thing for us to say as coaches than it is for them to understand as young kids.
Well, we've been through the process. We played a long time and we've coached a long time, and you see the end result, but it is almost impossible to explain to a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or even 11-year-old that these are, or a 16-year-old that matter. When they're in the throes of it, when they just struck out and they're all emotional, it's all in their head and they can do nothing right. It's impossible for them to see what we have already seen, and just I promise you, a week from now, this whole thing changes, and you're going to be 3 for 3, and it's game of averages, and that's the way it works. So, but
Right.
um, I mean, you have to try. You have to. So, are you
Right.
guys playing this weekend?
Yeah, yeah, we are. We've got a tournament this weekend with GMB. It's our favorite ballpark. It's Cedar Stone in Smyrna, Tennessee. A lot of our 6 of our 11 kids live in Nolensville, and Cedar Stone's just a 5-10 minute drive down the road. So we are playing this weekend, and hopefully the weather will coordinate and work well with us, or cooperate, I should say. How about you guys? Are y'all playing?
We took off last weekend for Easter. We take off this weekend, and then we'll jump right back into it. And we needed a lot of practice. So, like you said, we've been indoors a lot, and weather has just got us every time we wanted to be outside. So we've been outside not nearly as much as we want, but the last couple of weeks we have. So hopefully we've got a new little outlook on how the ball bounces off dirt instead of
Right.
turf. So, and
I,
there's a big
I
difference.
told
And
my parents
especially
the other
we
day
talk.
we had yeah, we're in an open league as well, right? Same with you guys. And we had a game last week that was on dirt and grass, and I set the expectation with the parents. I was like, hey, the boys are gonna be braving the elements, right? This is, it's not gonna be every hop's not gonna be perfect, right? But hey, and you touched on something, Baron. I think it's worth us talking about a little bit is the balance between practices and games, right? And I think this is where some of the elite teams who do travel a lot, I I wonder, and again, that's just not our philosophy, but I wonder if, especially at this age, if they're missing out on some of the development piece of practice time, right? And I'll compare it to, let's say, a shortstop. In a game, in 10U in a game, they may get what, 2 or 3 balls hit to them, whereas in practice they may get 70, 80, 90 ground balls hit to
Mhm,
them, right? And so
mhm.
we all love games, right? And we all want to compete against other teams and see how we stack up, and that that's fun. And but I think there's a balance there of making sure that you're also getting good practice time and not just going and playing games, whether it's just the amount of reps, or whether it's you just need a non-pressure environment to work on a certain skill. But you also need to go develop those skill in a game too, right? Because we all have those kids, and I've seen it because I coach high school basketball too. There'll be kids that just crush it in practice. They dominate in practice, but something's happening in a game where they're just not able to have that same level of success. And so you try to work through that. So anyway, I'm not saying that some of these teams don't need to play a lot of games. I think that's fine if that's what you want to do, but I don't think you need to just do away with practices either. I think there needs to be a balance there, especially at the younger age groups.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you can tell when we haven't practiced outside in a week. You can definitely tell. It's
Right.
a You're just talking about very small things. Even first and third, and we'll be in a game, and there'll be a first and third situation, and we'll be clueless on what's supposed to happen there. I mean, all you do is just continue. It's mass chaos. You're sending the guy in motion. There's all kinds of stuff, and somebody's screaming, "Step off!" The next thing you got a balk. Well, we haven't gone over that. We haven't been outside, so it's my fault. I mean, I'm the first one to raise my hand. It's my fault because we didn't go over it. But if we had more practice time, that we can deal with those things, or double cuts, or a trailer, or just all those little things that you
Right.
want these kids to understand by the time they get to middle school to try to make that team. And right now, I just want to play games. I just want to play games. I want to play games. I get it, but we need to have a whole lot of practice so that we can actually play these games and they'll be fun, as opposed to playing 3 innings, getting run ruled, and we're out. So
Right.
it's there's definitely a balance there, but there certainly needs to be, in my opinion, more practicing going on outside for
Right.
sure.
Yep.
So
I agree.
who knows if we can find field time, and especially Middle Tennessee, it's hard to find field time, but got to
No,
have
that's
it.
right. And that's, yeah. And not just field time, but also, obviously you got weather and scheduling and homework and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think you got to have a balance there to make sure, and make sure the parents know too, hey, getting there on time for practice is just as important as getting there on time for a game, right? So they can get the maximum amount of work in. And You know, and as much as baseball is kind of an individual sport with regards to that, right? You know, obviously there's camaraderie and, you know, especially if you have one, you know, more of a rigorous practice, right? I think it's good for the kids to kind of go through that together, right? I think there's some
Hmm.
cohesion that gets built there. And, you know, just grinding together, right? Just kind of helps these kids develop. And you know, it's not always going to be, you know, sunshine and rainbows, right? It's you know, you're going to have to put the work in. And obviously that's where, from an athletic development standpoint, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see them put that hard work in, and then hopefully come game time they see the fruits of that labor. And that's where, okay, I put the work in, I saw the result, which was great. But here's the thing too, and we've all been there as players. What if I line out 3 times to the center fielder? You know, that's a hard thing for a kid. That's a hard thing for a college player to figure out. Be like, hey, you don't need to adjust anything. But oh, I went 0 for 3, man. What are you talking about? No, you hit the ball in the screws. Don't adjust anything. You know, that's where, you know, the batting averages will work itself out, because maybe next time you'll hit a little looper over the second baseman, and you'll get credit just like you would if you had hit a you know, a hard line drive to the right fielder, right? And so that's just where baseball is just kind of a mental game. And you know, and that's where our job as coaches, I think, comes in, to kind of make sure that mental framework is put in place. And but that's a hard thing for a kid to learn.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna wrap us up, Matt. I really appreciate Matt Bonds with the Tennessee Spikes joining us. Great coach, fantastic friend, known him for a long time, but really appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
You got it. Thanks, Baron. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. YBMcast, Tennessee. Look forward to next week. We'll have another guest and talk more baseball and hopefully not get off the rails. Like, share, subscribe, all the stuff you do with YouTube. Y'all know how to do it. Just do the things. Anything left, Matt?
That's it, man. I appreciate it.
Have some. All right. Appreciate everybody. See you next week.